I shall eliminate all the mermaids in this river and become king of the 7 rivers.
Tamuno and Imira, the mermaid, vanished into the river that evening. Nobody saw them again. The water swallowed them like they never existed. 7 years passed. Tamuno and Imira bonded beneath the water with their children, the children of the deep. But the silence from the river only deepens the pain in Tamuno's home. His mother cried day and night, her eyes swollen from endless tears. "Will I ever see my son again?" she would ask, her voice breaking each time. His father sat in silence, staring at the doorway where Tamuno once walked in with laughter and stories. Their compound became a shadow of itself, empty, quiet, and heavy with sorrow. But Tamuno's family were not the only ones mourning. The land itself seemed to cry too. Ever since the day the mermaid goddess rose in anger and attacked Tonye and the other villagers, nothing had been the same. The river that once gave them life now brought only death. The air was dry, the soil cracked, and not a single green leaf grew in the farms. Famine spread across the town like a disease. Mothers buried their children. Men grew weak from hunger. The once lively market became a place of wailing and whispers. No one dared to go near the river anymore. The villagers said the goddess still lived there, waiting for anyone foolish enough to step close. Those who tried to fish secretly at night never returned. Their canoes floated back at dawn, empty, silent proof of what had happened to them. It wasn't once, it wasn't twice. Every few months, another brave man would say, "Let me try, maybe the goddess has forgotten." And the next morning, his people would find his paddle floating beside an overturned canoe. The village priest, an old man named Dibi, decided that he would try to appease the river. "Let me speak to the spirits. Perhaps they will listen to an old man's plea." He went to the river with white cloth tied around his waist and a calabash in his hand. The villagers watched from afar as he knelt by the water, murmuring prayers. Then suddenly, the calm river began to ripple. The surface turned dark and a cold wind blew across the banks. Before anyone could move, a mysterious hand shot up from the water and grabbed the priest by the leg. He screamed, a loud piercing cry that echoed through the trees, but the water swallowed him before anyone could run close. From that day, nobody ever mentioned appeasing the river again. The land of 7 rivers had become a place of fear and famine, where people fell ill and life slowly slipped away as every drop of water carried a curse. The villagers were broken and helpless. The curse from the river had eaten deep into every home, and no one knew what else to do. Their priest was gone, their farms dried up, and even the rain no longer fell. Then one evening, as the elders sat under the old mango tree near the market square, word came from a trader who had just returned from a distant town. He spoke of a group of fierce hunters who lived beyond the thick forest, men who could hunt anything that breathed. They said these hunters had once get rid of a lion that swallowed a man whole, and another time went deep into the sea to drag out a mythical fish creature. The villagers looked at one another. Maybe, they thought, these were the men who could end the curse. The elders sent word quickly, declaring that whoever defeats the mermaids and breaks the curse shall be crowned king of the 7 rivers, and all within it shall be subject to the fortunate one. Within days, a messenger returned with news that the hunters had agreed to visit, Oh, the first to arrive was Tograwe, a tall, muscular man with scars all over his chest and arms. People whispered that each scar carried a story of a battle he survived and a beast he conquered. Tograwe's eyes were sharp, his voice deep, and his steps heavy like thunder. He listened quietly as the village elders explained the situation. The curse, the deaths, the drowning, the hunger. Then one of the oldest men said, "If you can kill the mermaid goddess and her clan, everything here will be yours. You will become king and this land will serve you." Tograwe didn't even blink. The offer was too sweet to ignore. He had heard about the goddess before, stories told by drunk fishermen about her beauty and rage, but he never took them seriously. He smiled slowly. "So, all I need to do is eliminate her?" he asked. "Yes," the elder said, "eliminate her and peace will return." Tograwe rubbed his chin and nodded. "Then it's done," he said. "I will bring her head before sunrise." The villagers gasped. Nobody had ever spoken so boldly about the mermaid goddess. But that was Tograwe, the man who feared nothing. That night, as the moon climbed over the palm trees, Tograwe prepared for the hunt. He rubbed chalk on his face, tied charms around his neck, and sharpened his blade until it glowed in the firelight. People gathered from every corner of the community to watch him. Some whispered prayers, others shook their heads. An old woman muttered, "Ah, he does not know what he is walking into." Tograwe ignored them all. He lifted his weapon, raised his fist to the sky, and shouted, "By dawn, this river will kneel before me, Oshe baddest." With that, he disappeared into the forest path that led to the river. The villagers waited. Hours passed. The night grew silent, too silent. No frogs croaked, no crickets sang. The wind itself seemed to stop. Then far in the distance, there came a scream, a long, deep, tearing sound that echoed across the water. Dogs began to bark. Children cried. The people whispered, "The river has taken another one." By sunrise, pieces of Tograwe's weapons floated on the river's surface. His charms were scattered across the wet sand, torn apart. No one ever found his body. The villagers trembled, but the elders, desperate and stubborn, said, "We will not give up. There are still 6 hunters left." Bekumo was the second hunter to arrive, a man well known for his strength and his unmatched spear skills. His name carried weight across nearby villages. They said he once brought down a wild buffalo alone, and his weapon never missed its mark. When the elders told him about Tograwe's fate, he only smiled. "He went without wisdom," he said calmly, turning his spear in his hand. "The river may have swallowed him, but it cannot take me." The people watched him with mixed feelings, some hopeful, others trembling. He looked fearless, almost proud. Even as night began to fall and the wind turned cold, he showed no sign of fear. He stood before the river bank, eyes fixed on the calm surface. The moonlight made the water shine like silver, quiet but dangerous. The villagers, hiding in the bush path, watched him from afar, their hearts beating fast. No one dared to breathe too loud. Bekumo stepped closer, his spear ready. He whispered a short prayer under his breath and stepped into the shallow part of the water. Nothing happened. He smirked. "So, this is the great river that men fear," he said softly. But before he could take another step, the water rippled, gently at first, then violently. The calm surface broke into waves. Strange shapes began to move beneath it. The villagers froze. Then it happened. Something or many things rose from the deep. Glimmers of silver tails and glowing eyes surrounded Bekumo. The river came alive, swelling around him like a storm. He raised his spear high and struck fiercely. His weapon moved like lightning, cutting through the air. He pierced one creature, then another. The water turned red with anger. A piercing cry echoed across the river, followed by the sound of waves crashing. Bekumo shouted, spinning his spear again. For a moment, it looked like he was winning. Then a massive force pulled him backward. He lost balance. His spear slipped. He tried to grab it back, but another strong current wrapped around his legs, dragging him deeper. He fought, gasping for air, struggling to rise, but the river was stronger, far stronger. The villagers hiding in the bushes began to cry. One shouted, "Run!" Another whispered, "The spirits are angry." Within seconds, Bekumo was gone. Only his spear floated up briefly before vanishing beneath the dark surface. The river shook violently that night. Waves crashed against the shore as if mourning or raging. Trees along the bank bent and swayed under an unseen force.
Deep beneath, Tamuno and Imira watched helplessly. Around them, the river goddess and her clan wailed, a haunting sound that carried through the deep. Their sorrow was mixed with fury. More of their kind had fallen because of human greed. Imira covered her face with both hands, whispering in tears. Why did they never learn? Tamuno lowered his head. He understood both worlds, the rage of the mermaids and the suffering of his people. Yet he could do nothing. The war between the land and the deep had already gone too far. 2 market days passed after Bekumo's disappearance. The village grew silent, grief hanging in the air like mist. No songs were heard, no drums were beaten. Mothers whispered prayers at night, and the elders gathered by the fire, their faces heavy with fear. Then came Opukari, the warrior of the magic axe. Unlike others, Opukari was not just a hunter, he was a legend. His axe was said to obey his thoughts. He never needed to raise it high or swing it with force. A single point was enough to end whatever stood before him. Men spoke of him in hushed tones, saying even the forest spirits kept their distance. When news of his arrival spread, a faint light of hope flickered among the villagers, though it was mixed with doubt. Many had lost faith, but with no choice left, they gathered once more by the cursed river to watch the man who claimed no foe could stand before him. Opukari walked with calm confidence, his chest broad, his eyes sharp like a hawk's. The river lay before him, quiet yet menacing, as if waiting. He turned to the crowd and said, "This river has swallowed enough. Tonight it shall bow to my axe." Without another word, the villagers gasped as the surface swallowed him whole. Beneath the river, the world was silent and blue. Opukari moved gracefully, the axe glowing faintly in his hand. Each time he pointed it, bursts of energy darted through the water, invisible waves of destruction that tore through unseen shapes. He swam in circles, launching attack after attack, his confidence unshaken. Above the surface, bubbles and waves swirled violently, sending ripples toward the shore. Then came the deep rumble, a sound that made even the bravest tremble. The river goddess had risen. Her eyes burned with fury, and around her countless mermaids gathered, a host of shimmering forms, their cries echoing through the deep. The water turned dark, and the current shifted against Opukari. He tried to raise his axe again, but the floor spun him around. Before he could regain control, dozens of hands and tails wrapped around him. He struggled, pointing his weapon one last time, a flash of light, a surge of power, but the goddess waved her hand and the axe dimmed. The mighty warrior was dragged down into the cold silence. The villagers watching from afar saw the river explode upward in a violent wave. Then, stillness. Nothing but the faint sound of the wind and the trembling of leaves. That night, the river wept again. Its surface glowed faintly under the moonlight. Deep below, Tamuno and Imira sat quietly among the mourning clan. The mermaid's cries filled the water, songs of loss, pain, and vengeance. Even victory had its sorrow. They too had lost many of their kind. Imira whispered sadly, "The river wins, yet no heart is glad." Tamuno nodded, his face heavy. He said softly, "When blood feeds both worlds, there are no winners." The hardship in the village grew worse as the moons passed. Crops refused to grow, the streams dried up, and hunger crept through every home. The old could barely walk, the young were weak, and many simply could not see the new moon. Famine had become a shadow that followed every heartbeat. The air itself felt heavy. Even the drums that once called joy now lay silent. Then came a wave of new hope, or what the villagers thought was hope. 3 new hunters arrived, each believing they could succeed where the others had fallen. Ebimote was the first to arrive, known for his courage and sharp arrows. He stood before the river, beating his chest in pride, and shouted that no creature born of water could outsmart him. But that night, the river took him too. His voice echoed once and was gone. Then came Perekumo, the 5th hunter. His fame stretched across lands. He was the tracker of unseen things, the man who could smell danger before it struck. He dived into the river with acrobatic confidence, and for a while the water remained calm. But before dawn, it roared again, louder than ever. The villagers saw only his spear float back to the surface. Next was Fiembo, the 6th hunter. He was the strongest of them all, his muscles carved like stone. He tied charms around his waist and neck, saying no spirit could touch him. Yet the river was not one to fear charms. Before long, it pulled him down too, leaving only ripples behind. The people lost all courage. Many cried openly, others sat before their huts, staring into nothing. Some blamed the gods, some blamed the river, and a few began to think that perhaps the mermaids were not the true enemies after all. Then came Atasa. Fine boy, no pimples. He was not like the others. His presence alone was strange, almost divine. He walked lightly, yet his steps carried authority. His skin glowed faintly in the sun, his eyes calm but powerful. The villagers whispered that he was not fully human, that he was spirit-cooked, shaped by unseen hands. At times, smoke was said to rise from his head when anger stirred in him, and when he spoke in rage, fire escaped his mouth. What a human dragon! Yet, despite all that, his face carried a peaceful charm, gentle as the moonlight after rain. He arrived carrying nothing but a flute, carved from the bone of a sacred fish. He called it Olotemi, the enchanted flute. The elders gathered around him, half in awe, half in doubt. He raised the flute and said softly, "Tonight, the river will dance to my tune." When darkness fell, Atasa stepped into a canoe and paddled quietly into the heart of the river. The villagers watched from afar, their breath held. Then he began to play. The sound that came from the flute was unlike anything ever heard before. Soft, haunting, beautiful. It floated over the water like a dream, winding through the trees and across the village. Deep beneath, the mermaids heard it. The melody wrapped around their hearts like a spell. Slowly, one by one, they rose to the surface, their eyes half closed, their bodies swaying gently to the tune. Even the river itself seemed to listen. Atasa kept playing, his canoe drifting closer and closer to the riverbank. The mermaid followed the melody, hypnotized, their glow lighting up the dark water. His plan was clear, to draw them all out of the river at once. He knew that away from the water, their strength would fade. Once he got them near enough, he would strike and end the curse forever. But fate had other plans. From beneath the calm water, Tamuno appeared, the lost son of the land, now a spirit of the deep. His eyes were fierce, his hair flowed like the river itself. He grabbed the edge of Atasa's canoe and pulled it down with sudden force. The villagers screamed as the canoe tilted. The flute slipped from Atasa's hand and floated briefly before sinking. The two figures struggled fiercely beneath the waves, one glowing like fire, the other shining like water. The river churned and roared as if the earth itself trembled. Atasa, enraged, let out a roar that turned the water red with light. Fire flickered from his mouth as he tried to use Tamuno as an offering to the unseen gods. But just then, the mermaids, once hypnotized by the flute, awoke from their trance. Their eyes widened in horror. They screamed, their voices shaking the deep, and in a flash, everything changed. The waters brightened, then went still. No one truly knew what became of Atasa. Some said the mermaid overpowered him and bound him beneath the river, turning him into a spirit guard. Others swore they saw a burst of flame rise briefly above the water surface, a sign, perhaps, that he escaped using his powers. But from that night on, the river was never the same again. The villagers no longer dared to draw near. The water remained calm, almost watchful, as if something powerful now slept beneath it, waiting. And far below in the quiet deep, Tamuno and Imira sat side by side, their eyes glowing faintly as the songs of the mermaids echoed once more. Songs not of vengeance this time, but of sorrow, love, and memory. The land of 7 rivers had become a land of ghosts and famine. Every path that once echoed with children's laughter was now silent. The farms were dry and cracked, and even the birds no longer sang above the trees. It was as if the entire land had fallen asleep under a heavy curse. The villagers had tried everything, offerings, rituals, charms, but nothing worked. When the 7 hunters failed to liberate them from their sufferings and punishment, the people began to live in fear, whispering that the river goddess was beyond anger, that she was now mourning and vengeful. With no hope left, they turned to the only people who might still have a link to the river: Tamuno's parents.
It was a difficult decision. For 7 years, Tamuno and the mermaid Imira had vanished into the river's depths. His parents had waited day after day, sitting by the river bank, praying to see their son rise from the waters, but the river never answered. Now, the same villagers who once mocked them for birthing a river son began to gather at their home, weeping and begging. They came in groups, old men with walking sticks, mothers holding weak children, and youths whose eyes carried more fear than strength. Their voices trembled as they spoke. "Please, Mama Tamuno,
You alone can speak to your son. The land is dying. If the goddess does not lift her hand from us, we will all perish." Tamuno's mother sat quietly for a long time. Her husband had passed away months earlier from sickness, his body too weak to fight the hunger that had spread across the land. She looked at his old stool, the one he used to sit on while waiting for Tamuno's return, and her eyes grew wet. She feared the river. Everyone did, but a part of her, the part that carried Tamuno in her womb, still believed her son was alive somewhere beneath those waters. That night, she couldn't sleep. The sound of the wind reminded her of Tamuno's laughter as a child, and the croaking frogs sounded like voices calling from the deep. By dawn, she made her decision. She rose from her mat, tied her wrapper firmly around her waist, and stepped outside. The air was cold, the ground damp with dew. Villagers were already gathered, waiting in silence. "If my son lives beneath that river," she said softly, "then a mother's love reached where no warrior's spear could." The people began to cry and kneel around her. Some tried to stop her, fearing she would not return, but she only smiled weakly. "I have lost everything," she whispered. "If this is what the gods demand, then let it be." With the determination of a mother, she started walking towards the river. The villagers watched from afar, afraid to step closer. Tamuno's mother knelt by the edge, tears streaming down her cheeks. She lifted her hands to the sky and prayed aloud, her voice trembling but clear. "O goddess of the 7 rivers, mother of the deep, forgive the foolishness of men. Spare this land. If my son still breathes beneath your waters, let him hear his mother's cry." For a moment, the wind stopped. Even the leaves refused to move. The villagers held their breath. Then, a ripple appeared on the surface of the water. It grew wider, circling slowly, and from the center of the river came a faint, glowing light. Some villagers screamed and fled. Others fell to their knees, but Mama Tamuno did not move. She stayed kneeling, her tears falling freely as she whispered her son's name. Tamuno. The light grew stronger, spreading across the water like the first rays of dawn. And somewhere deep in the river, something stirred. From the depths of the river, Tamuno rose. The waters parted gently as the mermaid appeared from every direction, their eyes fixed on him, silent but watchful. On the river bank, his mother gasped. For a moment, she couldn't move. Her heart leapt, her knees trembled, then tears streamed down her cheeks as she fell to the ground, crying and hitting the earth. "Tamuno, my son!" She stretched her hands towards him, her voice shaking with both joy and sorrow. Tamuno swam closer, his eyes glistening under the sunlight that kissed the water. For 7 long years, her mother had prayed for this moment. Now it was here and she could hardly believe it. Through her tears, she begged, my son, please, speak to the goddess. Tell her to have mercy on us. The land has suffered enough. And come home, my child. Your father waited and waited until his spirit could not wait anymore." Tamuno's face fell. The words struck deep, piercing through him like a cold blade. He lowered his head, his voice breaking softly. "Mother, go home. You will hear from me soon." She wanted to say more, but something in his tone held her still. With slow steps, she rose and turned back towards the village, her eyes wet but filled with hope. From a distance, the villagers watched in disbelief. None could believe what they had just witnessed. The angry mermaid had not attacked her. The water had not raged. It was as if the river itself had listened.
That night, beneath the deep blue of the underwater world, Tamuno sat beside Imira and their children of the deep, little sea beings with glowing eyes and voices like humming shells.
He held Imira's hand and spoke gently. My love, your mother's anger has brought great suffering to the land. The people have learnt their lesson. Please, plead with her to lift the curse. Imira's face darkened, her long hair flowing in the current like dark smoke. She looked at him with eyes full of sorrow. Tamuno, she whispered, you wish to return to the land, don't you? He nodded slowly. My mother is alone. I must see her again. But I will never forget you or our children. Imira's tears floated away like tiny pearls. Her heart ached, but she understood. Then go, she said softly, but never abandon us. Imira, the understanding wife. And with that, she placed her hand on his chest. A soft, glowing mark appeared where her palm touched. It shimmered faintly like moonlight on water. So that the sea will always know you, she whispered. The next morning, the villagers woke to an unusual silence. The wind had changed. The air was cooler, softer. Then, from the riverbank, a ripple spread, and Tamuno emerged, walking slowly onto the land. It was his first step on soil in 7 years. The breeze seemed to bow as he passed. The trees rustled gently as though welcoming him home. People began to gather along the path, whispering and pointing. Is that not Tamuno? Can a man live under the water and return alive? No one dared go too close, but they followed him behind, step by step, until he reached his mother's hut. When she saw him at her doorway, she cried out and rushed into his arms. Both of them wept, holding each other tightly. Mother, I will never leave you again, Tamuno promised. At that moment, dark clouds gathered suddenly over the sky. The air grew heavy and a low rumble rolled through the heavens. Then it happened. Rain. For the first time in 7 years, the heavens opened and rain poured over the land of 7 rivers. Children screamed and danced in joy. Women fell to their knees. Men lifted their hands to the sky, letting the water wash their faces. The curse had been lifted. They carried Tamuno through the village, dancing and singing even in the rain. Palm leaves waved, drums echoed, and the people shouted, All hail the king! All hail the king of the 7 rivers! You! Tamuno was crowned the next market day. King Tamuno, the custodian between land and water. Yet, he did not forget his love beneath the waves. On the night before every market day, King Tamuno would walk to the riverbank, remove his crown, and dive silently into the water. There, beneath the moonlit surface, Imira and the children of the deep awaited him. Before dawn, he would rise again, stepping out of the river as the first cock crowed, calm, gentle, and at peace. That was how he ruled, balancing 2 worlds, bound by love and destiny. And so the people said for generations after, Blessed is the king who loved both the land and the sea. All hail King Tamuno, all hail the king of the 7 rivers. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe, like, share, and comment. Dieu.